All right. Welcome to Small Town News. My name's Gil. I guess I look at the camera. Thank you. First off, thanks to Imperial County Office of Education for allowing me to interview wonderful people and the staff here. Today I'm here with Queana Givens Jarvis.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you. District and School Support Coordinator. Is that
Yes.
correct? As customary, tell me about yourself and then we'll go from there.
Okay, my name is Queana Givens Jarvis. I am in my 10th year at Imperial County Office of Education with a 3-year break in there. And I think this is year 16 for me in education. And so it's been I've had lots of experiences in education, holding different kinds of jobs outside of the classroom, besides, kind of what most people think as teacher. There are other jobs available with that credential, and I've done several of them.
Yeah, I guess we'll continue kind of on that. 16 years. What have been some of the biggest difference changes in education from the first year to now?
Yeah, the biggest shift and biggest change has come with the Common Core. So I think when I started in 2001, California had just adopted a set of standards, and kids were taking that test at the end of the year, and schools were held accountable for getting a certain percentage of students proficient. And it was one number, and it was all or nothing based on one test, one part of the year. And in the last, I think we're 5 years, 6 years into the Common Core, and new standards and a whole new assessment system. Schools have recognized, or the state has recognized, that growth is good, and schools should sort of get credit for moving all students, not just having some kind of arbitrary bar that all students have to meet. So what did your class look like when they started the year with you? And have you enabled all students in your class to grow from where they started? So that's a big change, and everyone is still getting used to that idea.
Yeah. Now, it makes the many, you've been a middle school teacher, you've been in the classroom to now. I guess, how has that helped you understand your current role as a district and school support? And how has your experience being a teacher, being, in there, in the middle of it, helped you today in your role?
Yeah, I believe it or not, was in the classroom for a short 4 years, teaching 7th and 8th grade out at McCabe, when it was still just McCabe, not Korfman yet, and there were 501 student in the entire school, and two 7th grade classes and 2 8th grade classes, and 4 junior high teachers. That was it. And so I was able to have students in 7th and 8th grade, and see them through those 2 years and how they change and grow, and from the end of 6th to the end of 8th grade, kids go through massive change. And it seems like lots of parents had children, kind of with a big gap. So they'd been the oldest sibling, and now they were having a baby, or maybe lost a loved one. So everything's amplified and super dramatic in junior high.
Oh, yeah.
But they're my people, right?
Yeah.
Those kids are my people. And there's teachers that look at me and say, "Oh, junior high, how could you ever?" And I look at kindergarten teachers and say, "Bless you, lady, bless you."
Perspective.
Yes,
Perspective.
yes. But we use a lot of the same strategies. So anyway, it was a short 4 year with kids, and in those summers, because I was the only teacher for junior high, my colleagues were helpful, but there weren't colleagues that taught the same exact thing that I was teaching. So anytime I would come to the county office for training, I just was desperate for support, and are you doing this? And how are you using that book? We had just gotten a new set of textbook tools. And I use this book for that, and are you using this one? And, this one doesn't seem to be doing the trick. What are you doing? And at that time, the woman in this position, her name was Donna Shoneman. She said, but I love the way you're thinking. You should do these trainings. You should train teachers. And I thought, lady, I was 23, 22. Um, I said, you think people are going to listen to me? And she says, absolutely. I'm going to send you to the state and I'm going to get you certified as a trainer. And at the time, the state was providing money for teams or teachers to come to 5 days of training in the summer and learn how to use their instructional materials. And so I started doing that. I started training teachers in the summer, probably after my second year of teaching. And I never stopped. So I would go to San Francisco for a week, I'd go to Lancaster for a week and work with these teachers for 5 days and then, come home and make a little bit of money in the summer. And that was my first, I think, inkling that you could do something other than be in the classroom with a credential. Like, I didn't even know that that job of a trainer or coach existed until someone saw in me what I didn't even know I could do.
Like a good teacher,
And
right?
she was amazing. She was a mentor for sure. And so then that same woman, a year or two later, decided to move to a different position at the county office, and she says, I think you should apply. I think you should apply to be the secondary language arts coordinator. That's what it was called. And I thought, again, I'm 25. There's people been teaching for 20 years. What are they going to look at me like I'm, underqualified? And she says, nope, you need to apply. And so I did, and I had to write like a mock newsletter for the interview, and I had to present for 15 minutes about a topic that was now in education in that little room over there. And I got it. I got the job after 4 years of being in the classroom. So it's not a classic line for our profession, right? People usually teach for a long time and then decide to get their admin credential or maybe move to counseling or something. So I went straight from the classroom to training teachers here at the county office.
Wow. So how you said 10 years you now?
Yeah, so it was 4 at McCabe and then 8. I spent 8 years directly after that here at the county office. And coming on to the end of that 8, it was just a challenging time in this role. It was after the market crashed, and there was lots of
Smartphones.
yes.
Kids having a smartphone.
All that was changing too. So that at the time, like when schools needed the most resources, there wasn't money. And for some wasn't the work to support that. So I decided to make a change and went to Central Union High School District for 3.5 years. I went over as we call them instructional coaches. So there was another kind of role, not in the classroom, but still supporting teachers that was available in that district. So I jumped over. And for a year, I did that job. So same kind of thing that I do here, but just with the same staff, training teachers, writing curriculum, supporting teachers in writing curriculum, and helping to set plans for professional development for the whole district. And then after 1 year of doing that, an opportunity came up at Just Central, and that's called the Program Improvement Resource Teacher. All of these crazy names for, it doesn't quite explain what those jobs do, but something I never thought I'd do, because I don't really even balance my own checkbook. But I learned a lot in that job about how the money works. And it was a great time to learn it because everything was changing, the whole local control funding model, and having to kind of go to parents and ask, well, what do you think we need? And to teachers, and what do you think we need? And to kids, what do you think we need? And now, based on all of that, design the plan and then put the dollars to the plan, and you can't pay for certain things at a certain pot. So that was a great period of growth in my background, because it really gave me perspective on the limited resources and constraints of a budget in a school where everybody wants and needs something. So really determining what's best within the vision of a school, and deciding what direction to take and how the money will support what we value.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of had every like perspective to kind of mold you into who you are today in regards to your profession.
Yes, yes, and it's definitely been longer now working with the adults in a school building and around a school building than with the kids. But that's kind of one thing I like about my role, is that, one type of training that I do with teachers is I'll take over and teach their class so that they can watch and learn. We come out and debrief, and they can listen to me think out loud about, oh, I would do that differently next time, or that didn't quite work as the way I dreamed it in my head, or man, I'm going to do that every single time. There's nothing that helps a teacher grow like getting to watch their colleagues go first, and then sort of reflect on, I don't really do that in my class, and it was good. I think I should. But every other profession gets to do it that way, pretty much. Doctors watch. They don't get in there right with the tools and go for it. They watch a surgery, and then they reflect on that surgery and how they might do it differently, or when they're in those shoes, do it. So they watch their mentors for years before they're allowed to do it. And teachers don't really get it that way. They get their keys.
Yeah, and off and running.
Yeah,
Right?
well, and there are programs. I work with Robin at the other end of the office. She directs our induction program. So that's an attempt to say, let's not just throw new teachers in there. Let's provide them a mentor, a support provider. I've done that role before. Leading teachers through these different modules to help them reflect on their practice and get better and better. A shoulder to cry on, but really using coaching skills to support them to get better in their practice.
So, as a support coordinator, you coach. I mean, that's the whole county-wide, or is it, I guess, what schools specifically? Or?
This year, it changes every year, and this job is neat in the fact that we can sort of make it what we want it. Listen to our districts, listen for what they need, and then design professional development to meet that need. So coaching is one aspect of the job, and some people, I didn't know that there was such a thing as an instructional coach. I thought, coaching, isn't that what sports teams have, right? And one of the very first assignments that I had in this role when I came on the first time around was leading this 4-day professional development in how to be a coach, how to coach others. And in that, I learned that is a foundation for everything that I do today. Listening skills, that's kind of what you do. Listening skills, paraphrasing to reflect that I'm listening and I hear you, and asking really good questions, open-ended, either narrowing questions when people are feeling overwhelmed, or expanding questions to help them get out of a rut. But those essential skills are the basis of my practice when it comes to coaching. So,
I guess what goes into coaching, or coaching a teacher? I guess what resources do you utilize to? I know you just mentioned those skills, but I guess what have you found is effective?
Yeah, I mean, you can't even use those skills with a teacher until you get in the door. So the number one thing is trust, building trust, and it sounds, soft, like a soft skill. But I believe that it's everything, especially when it comes to teaching. We talk a lot. We are 7 coordinators, and we're tight, and it's a very brilliant and powerful team. And we talk a lot about how teaching is such a personal profession. It's such a thing you can't really separate the teacher from the person. And not like in other jobs, right, where I can go home. I leave my manager job at home and I come home and I'm Queana and I'm, a different person. And we do all try to, maintain our separate lives, but when a teacher goes to Walmart, they are Mrs. Jarvis, they are Miss Baker, they are that persona. And so to come in as a coach and offer feedback and, honest critique and, make recommendations for improving practice is a very personal process. And without understanding a coach's job, what they're there for, without understanding that they're not there evaluative in an evaluative manner, but that they're there in a supportive manner. Without those understandings, then there can be lots of pushback to somebody coming into your classroom and trying to tell you what to do. But that is a myth of the role. The role is I am coming to be sort of a mirror back to you with what I observe, nothing but the facts, to show you avenues for improvement. Because running a classroom's hard. 30 of them, one of you, eyes on the back and sides of your head and all different needs. So it takes another set of eyes to come in and tell you what you're not seeing, help you see what you're not seeing. So trust, first and foremost, and clarity about the role are kind of step one in getting to a point where you can walk into somebody's classroom. The next thing is that it has to be, I think it's best when it's part of a bigger plan, a bigger professional development plan. So when a school says, these are the 3 things that we're most looking for in a classroom, then that really helps a coach go in and say, here's how we can focus and make your lessons look more like what your bosses are expecting. And so our role is all servant leadership. It's all, sort of supporting teachers in the agenda of their district.
And it's ever changing. I mean, you're dealing with human beings, and it's funny because last night I was this video on YouTube. It randomly came up. It was Malcolm Gladwell talking about, teacher, good and bad teachers are the trust. He said, good teacher in the 80th percentile, a teacher in the 80th percentile, they can teach a year and a half in 1 year. To teach in the 20th can teach, half a year. So it's a year gap, and. But then you start asking, what makes a good teacher? And it's like, is it this, is it that, or it's the relationships? You can, and when you brought up that, when you go to the
trust,
store,
yes.
and there's still it's that relationship between how do we build that, and I guess so. I guess what makes a good teacher from your experience?
They come in all varieties, all where the outside world might think that they're quirky or mean or whatever. It is all that first, the relationship and the environment that a teacher creates for their classroom. We always talk about a safe environment, and not just safe like, we have a lock block on the door in case there's a problem, or, our ceiling isn't caving in. But safe emotionally, and safe from attack, safe for exploring their ideas. So relationships, a training that I have given before, and a quote that I use all the time from that, and it's no significant learning takes place without significant relationship. Our first teachers are our parents, the people that we love, and we learn language in this loving, trusting relationship with our families. We learn, all those things without any classroom instruction, but all through this loving relationship and somebody showing us how. So a good teacher is loving but firm, you know, is fair. A good teacher knows their content. Um, so that's a challenge, especially at elementary where they have to teach everything. They have to know a little bit about a lot of things, uh, but definitely to know their content, uh, to be able to give feedback to students and help them measure where they are, where they're headed, and the gap in between to help fill those gaps. So it's a lot of elements to a.
Yeah. Actually, I think when I was hearing Gladwell, that's kind of what he said. There's so many elements. You
Yes.
can't pinpoint one. And do people maybe sometimes do that? Sometimes use one item to, I guess, categorize or
Oh yeah.
score a teacher.
I think if you don't live in schools, if you're not around schools all the time, then you have a few experiences with schools, right? You have the experience that you had if you went to public school or even if you went to private school. You have these ideas. You had your first grade teacher, your kindergarten teacher that sort of shaped what you think teaching should look like. And if you had good and bad ones along the way, you've compared them and you know why this one is good for you and that one wasn't great for you. Um, so you have your experiences that you had as K-12 and in college too. Um, the other thing is the way that classrooms are portrayed on TV. I always feel like I want to do like a thesis on this or some kind of documentary on this or some uh, compilation of video clips that show like iconic movies that show classrooms, because what you'll see is like the Robin Williams kind of teacher up in the front and kids just passively listening but also engrossed in what he's saying. The Bueller. We've shown clips of like Fast Times at Ridgemont High and every commercial, you see kids kind of like disengaged or the teacher is the star and all these kids are like eating out of their palm of their
In a class of
hand.
like 9 kids.
Yeah, 9 kids,
Because of angle. Yeah.
9 kids, who all speak English and who all, seem bright and ready to go and have all the tools that they need. And that is not reality of today's classroom. So, like on the one hand, you have your experiences and pictures from the media perpetuating that classroom where the teacher is up front talking and the kids are passively taking notes or actively engrossed in this entertaining teacher, right? So you either have the entertainer or the boring teacher, and no matter what, the kids are passive. They're not making, they're not building, they're not doing. And you asked at the top about how the world has changed. Well, the world that we're asking classrooms to shift to now is about that, is about kids doing the talking, is about the teacher becoming more of a coach and facilitator and using great questions or great tasks, setting up great tasks for kids to demonstrate what they know. And what we know is that in the Valley, lots of students are coming from a place where they didn't speak English first, right? Or they're coming from a low-income household uh, where academic language is not spoken in any household, but advanced vocabulary may not be spoken in the house. So what we know is the person speaking the language is the person learning the language. And so for an English learner or a struggling reader to sit passively and take in language all day long, they're not developing their language. And that is science. That is the research that we're working off of. So we talk often about flipping the script. If the script was all teacher, very little student before, literally we want to flip the ratio of student talk. Um, to a little bit of teacher guidance, teacher coaching and questioning, and a lot of student talking, student making, student building, student doing. That is the challenge, is busting up 150 years of doing it that other way. Teacher in the front, students sit quietly and behave, right?
Yeah.
The new classroom is loud and it's, it's organized chaos, at least in my brain, my vision of it, that's what it should be. Students thinking and reasoning and talking, and so that they can speak and write with fluency.
And also, it's like giving them a responsibility of this kind of organized. Like, we're going to let you speak, but, and that's where a lot maybe kids might need, right? That
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It is a place also where teachers are afraid. They're like afraid to let go of control. Sometimes when we're in a training, it's almost like they're having an epiphany. Teachers, I'm afraid to do it because I don't want to give up control. I like it, in my rows, and I like it when I ring my bell and they all do what I say, and I like it when I have my PowerPoint ready to go and they're taking notes, But the reality is, a lot of our work is helping teachers set the rules up around, we call it productive talk, productive academic talk. Put rules and structures around those tasks so that they're loud because kids are talking, but that they're safe, right? And that they're academic and that they're driven by the students.
Yeah, it all kind of ties together to the relationship and trust. I mean, it's all.
It really
Yeah,
is.
we're talking about different stuff, but as I'm talking, I'm like, oh, it all fits together, and wow, yeah, it's.
Yeah, and if you think about you and your own work, or think about any boss that you've ever had, you are going to work harder for someone that you trust and respect than someone that you don't, right? You almost don't work to spite someone that you don't trust and respect. And that's with all of the reasoning that comes with adulthood. So now think of a junior hire, who doesn't trust or respect someone in the room and may not be receiving that from the teacher either. They don't have any of that. I touch my brain. That they have that underdeveloped brain that doesn't have any of the impulse control. And so, bad things can happen when kids don't trust and respect their teacher.
Yeah. Going back to, we talked about that perception that we see on TV, the media.
Yes.
Does that even affect incoming teachers?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because there's nothing that prepares you for the day that you get
That's
your
what you're talking
keys.
about. Yeah, you got
your keys, and there's 30, sometimes closer to 40 of them and one of you. And if you're an elementary school teacher, you're with those kids all day long, right? Not just 55 minutes and then I'll be on to the next group. Nothing prepares you for that. No book, no video, no hypothetical situation, which is a lot of what, teacher school is. And you bring all of that with you, and we spend a lot of the first years of a teacher's career breaking down those old things, breaking down what they thought it should look like, and really trying to demonstrate and give them experiences to show them what it should look like, or at least something closer to what the new vision is for schools in California.
You talked about, the teacher's education. We also talked about, the importance of the relationship. Has there more emphasis been placed on that in recent years in regards to the education of the teacher? Has it kind of always been there? I mean, how do you teach a relationship in a book? If you don't, you kind of have to kind of build it and experience it. Is there, because has there been an emphasis kind of moving towards that as?
Yeah, I mean, the idea of looking at the social and emotional health of kids is definitely at the forefront right now, and has I think I think, emerging towards the forefront, because we're talking about things like, social justice in schools and equity in schools, and, providing access to everything that a school has for every kid. And, I would say every adult can think back to something in high school that they didn't feel like they were entitled to, that they didn't have access to, that was only for those kinds of kids, or that's only for those classes are for those kinds of kids, and those other kids end up in that classroom over there in that corner. And so there's a lot more advocacy for inclusion of, I hate even using the word, but, we call them subgroups, your underrepresented groups. So special education students, how much of their day can we get them involved with the general ed students, right? Just because they have a learning need, a special need, doesn't mean that they should be ostracized from their peers all day long, right? They need special support in reading, let's give them that, and then, push them out into these experiences with their peers. That's one way that we're talking about inclusion. And then, of course, with our second language learners, what we know in California is that students who are English learners, there was a stat, 2% of their day is used speaking the target language of English. And it's not much better for English speakers. It's just around 6% of their day is spent using the target language of English. So that means they're either not being asked to talk across their school day, or they're not asking questions, or they're not speaking in English, right? They're using their home language all day, and without an expectation of using academic English in classrooms. The only time they're ever going to get to learn it and use it is in classrooms. So we don't talk that way with our friends.
Yeah, that's important. I mean, I remember reading, I forgot what book it's talking about. We kind of throw entitlement around as something. I mean, yeah, it can be, but it can be positively as a child asking a doctor. Yeah, doctor, doc, that's kind of the example was a mother and a child were at a doctor's office.
Mm-hmm.
Doctor's talking about the mother, but then the child says, "Hey, doc, no, I do feel pain right here." And that kind of entitlement is, "Hey, my question, does matter.
Yes.
I'm not going to sit here and be quiet. I have a voice that I think is entitled to be heard, despite the fact that, I'm a child."
Yes.
And so kind of that empowerment.
Absolutely. And creating opportunities for kids to use that voice. I mean, that's all part of the, I'm sure you've heard of like STEM or STEAM learning and project-based learning. There's the cool science aspects to either of those things, but something embedded in that is kids getting to choose the projects that they're interested in. In El Centro, they're calling theirs the Passionate Kids Project. And in like Brawley High has like a lot of civic engagement going on. I just came from a civic engagement conference, and that was they had a very simple definition of civic involvement, and it's creating impact in your community. And so when kids have choice about a project that they want to do, when they have voice, when they have someone to support them through the skills part, when they have a real audience, that's something I think we could do better at, is giving kids a real audience for the work that they're doing. So whether they have to go and read a book that they wrote to younger students, right, or produce a brochure and have it really available at the health department, or give a speech to Sir Optimus Club or whoever, making their audience more than just that one teacher for that one class, ups the ante for all of the work that the students would be doing. So voice and choice are often two words we hear put together, along with like supporting kids through those skills. So we want them to really reach for rigorous work, but we have to be there right behind them to support them in the skills that they haven't yet acquired. We have to believe that they can acquire them too.
And believe that the teachers can help. I mean, from your perspective, I guess, are there good and bad teachers?
Yes.
And how do you monitor or a bad teacher? I guess what would make someone a bad teacher?
Well, if they're in it for the wrong reason, that is bad. As a coach, I really don't. The person me might be saying, right, in my brain over here, oh Lord, this person needs help. The person me might be saying that. But just even being able to recognize that in myself as a coach is part of what good coaching is. So that I can sort of say, let me set that personal feeling and judgment to the side, because the job is non-evaluative. It's not my job to judge. And really go to a place in myself about helpfulness. So I really think, there's lots of reasons why a teacher may not have progressed in their profession, professional development. Maybe no coherent plan at a school. But in my experience, the vast majority of teachers want to do well by their students. They are there for kids. They work tirelessly well before the bell and well after the bell and into weekends and what summer, that kind of thing. And as they see that success too. So that's kind of try anything and try to generate a buzz around what those students are able to do, so that people kind of go, hey, everybody's talking about that teacher over there in room 3. Let me see what's going on in room 3. And can you help me with that thing that's going on in room 3? So that's kind of approach, is setting my judgments to the side and entering into the situation with like an open heart, open mind, and using questioning skills, training and questioning skills to bring that teacher along. So I think every teacher can grow. When that willingness to grow fades, that might be the time to think about turning keys. It's not a profession that can be done the same every single year. It changes with the kids. Every new composition is having to adjust to something new.
You talked about every year. How's it? I mean, we were talking about kind of smartphones. Different. I mean, and it's so fast. I mean, I graduated 10 years ago. And
Yeah.
my phone just played Snake.
Yeah, exactly. The flip phone.
And then in less than a decade, we went from that to photos. Snapchat, social
Yes,
media.
Yes.
Has it gotten harder for teachers and having to adjust or make changes, like I said, every year, but so quickly today? How has that made it more difficult?
Yeah. Just like getting kids to talk more in class requires some letting go and some trust and some planning, I think the same applies to any kind of technology that we want to bring into the classroom. It requires some forethought, some soft and hard rules around using those things in the classroom. So that's the one side of technology, right? Is just managing it being in the classroom. There's teachers that resist, right? No phones, put them away, never ever. There's some that are more lax, yeah, if it's independent work, you can have your earbuds in. So I think as a school, those conversations really need to be had about what are the must-dos and may-dos around the technology. Um, the the instructional side of that is helping teachers move beyond just taking what they would have done with a marker and on a chalkboard, a whiteboard, and just transferring that to a screen, right? Technology has the potential to do so much more than just replace a chalkboard or a whiteboard. And so there are phases of implementations that teachers will go through, right? So I got this new something. Right now it's just really mechanical, and sometimes it's even more trouble than it's worth. But then, as teachers learn more about the integration of technology, and using it to innovate rather than just replace, that's when you can say that the tools are now working to enhance a kid's education. So there's lots of uses for tech, but a teacher, just like any other practice that they're going to put into their classroom, will go through a continuum of implementation.
Yeah.
And some are scared, and some jump right in. It's not always who you would think. It can't just be relegated to age, because that's a myth. That's false. I feel like if all their career teachers have jumped into the next thing, that technology is the same. They will try. They will jump right in.
Yeah, it's kind of like that myth, the media, like the older teachers are always like the, and you have the young, whippersnapper.
Nope.
It's, but it
You
doesn't.
asked about new teachers. There are some, that
Yes.
walk in the door with this my kids can't do that attitude, right? Because of the color of their skin, or the language that they do or don't speak, or the poor town that they live in. You know, making assumptions about what kids can and can't, or will or won't do. But it really has been my experience that if I take the time to structure what I'd like them to do, they will engage. And if they get to use their voice, they'll engage even more. And then when they feel safe to offer up an opinion, they'll engage even more. And you said it, if it matters to them, we're using this little mantra around our office that what matters to you matters. You'll learn the ins and outs of fishing or hiking, or remote control cars or whatever it is, because it matters. So if we can figure out how to take what matters to kids and wrap our skills and curriculum around that, that would be, I guess, the holy grail of teaching. Like it is a vision that's out there for what schools can be.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, almost at the hour. Well, you are the director of the California Reading and Literature Project.
Yes.
I guess maybe share a little about that.
Sure. So there is a grant, an organization called the CSMP, the California Subject Matter Projects, and there are 11 different subject matter projects: math, the math project, the art project, the world languages project. So there's 11 of these, and the reading and literature project is one of them. And so I think there are 11 or 12 regions that have received the California Reading and Literature Grant, and they're usually housed in a university. All of these subject matter projects, because the idea is to connect the research that's happening around education in the university to teachers, practitioners who are doing it day in and day out, and then creating training that sort of bridges the research and practice. And so our region is unique in that CRLP is housed here at the County Office of Education. So it really gives us access to our clientele in a way that being at a university may not for some of the other regions. So it's It's not a big grant. It's a little bitty grant. But part of it allows me to work with, I have 7 right now, teacher leaders from all over the county, and they do action research for me. So for the grant. And before I came back to this job last November, I was a teacher leader. I was able to participate. And I some of the very best learning that I've ever done has come out of this project, because it's all seeped and saturated in research. Like, we don't do anything without consulting the name and the research first. And so through that program, we have, training series that focus on Spanish to English biliteracy transfer for teachers that are working in a dual language program where kids learn in English and in Spanish, no matter what their home language is. We have training for all content area teachers, science, math, social studies, in how to analyze the text that they're going to use for speed bumps that English learners or students who struggle with reading might encounter, and help them plan. So it's not to say, don't have them read that challenging text. It's more like, how can I help my kids read that challenging text instead of offering something more watered down. So that's an access issue. So yeah, so professional development and helping build these leaders in a small cadre through action research are the main things that grant has me doing.
Oh, that's awesome. Hey, that's awesome.
It's a little sliver.
It's great. Well, we'll wrap it up there. I want to thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Learned a lot. Any final thoughts? Anything what people listening, or just something you want to sign off?
Yes, get involved with what's happening at school with your kids. We are a partnership, schools, home, community, and like the minute we start blaming or putting all of the responsibility on one of those 3 branches, things start to fall apart for kids. And so I say, get involved in school. You can help your kid by reading to them. And you don't have to be able to do their math for them. Reading and having conversation with kids grows their brain immensely. I would also say, talk less about how smart your kid is and talk more about how hard they work to help grow their stamina and their mindset. Start complimenting and praising how hard they are working rather than praising the grade, praising the inherent smartness, and praise their growth.
All right, well, thank you. I appreciate it.
I appreciate it too.
That's fine.
Got to talk about my favorite things.
Yeah, you were nervous.
Yes.